December can sometimes be a slower month for new video game releases, but that hasn't stopped Ubisoft from releasing a brand new IP in the month of December, Immortals Fenyx Rising. When the game was first announced, I watched a trailer on it and I thought it looked interesting, but I never really followed up with the project. That wasn't until a demo came out on Google Stadia of all things, and a lot of people I knew were talking about it and saying just how interesting the game was. Ubisoft actually reached out to sponsor this video, which is great because I was gonna cover the game anyways, might as well secure the bag, so big thanks to Ubisoft for sponsoring the video and for a review copy of this game. Now on December 3rd, Immortals Fenyx Rising will be out on the Xbox, the PlayStation, Google Stadia, PC, but the most interesting version to me was the Nintendo Switch version of the game. While other platforms have a lot of open world style games, the Nintendo Switch really doesn't, so I was curious to see how this game would end up turning out. But what is Immortals Fenyx Rising? Is it a fun game, and how is the Nintendo Switch version of the game? Let's go ahead and answer those questions and much more. Now, like I said at the start of the video, outside of the initial trailer, I didn't really follow this game much, and honestly, I'm kind of glad I didn't, because the story ended up being a huge surprise for me in a very positive way. Typhon, who is a titan from Greek mythology, is your main bad guy, who has basically overtaken the land, turned people into stone, and is trying to take down Zeus to be the leader of Olympus. Zeus seeks help from Prometheus, who is basically chained to a mountain, and a bet is made. Prometheus says that a mortal will defeat Typhon. If the mortal does defeat Typhon, Zeus has to set Prometheus free. If they don't, then Prometheus will try to help Zeus take down Typhon. That is when we are introduced to Fenyx, our main character of the story who you play as, and our adventure begins. Fenyx is a fully customizable character in terms of both looks and gender, so my Fenyx kinda looks like me, I feel. Where the story becomes super enjoyable to me though is in the way that it's presented. I expected Immortals Fenyx Rising to have like a very serious tone, which would have been fine, but it doesn't at all. Instead, Fenyx's adventure ends up being narrated by both Prometheus and Zeus, who have a ton of witty banter back and forth, and everything in terms of the story is presented a lot like a 90s Disney movie like an Aladdin or Hercules. It's very over the top, it's very cleverly written, and honestly, it made me want to keep playing the game more so than a super serious tone would have. Even the voice acting is a bit reminiscent of a classic Disney flick, and this was really one of the standout features for me in this game. The gameplay in Immortals Fenyx Rising is an interesting blend that will give you flashbacks to other games, but definitely provides enough uniqueness to make it stand out on its own. As far as the world itself is concerned, you'll definitely get some Breath of the Wild vibes from it, but that world was great, so that's not really a problem now, is it? There are 7 main areas that you visit, and the entire game can be accessed right from the start, meaning you can go anywhere you want from the get-go. Now, of course, the game does have main missions in order to sort of guide you along, but there's tons of side quests, tons of vaults to discover to gain abilities, puzzles, and a lot more scattered all throughout the land. I would say for my first few hours, I definitely ended up veering off the path and doing some things that I was just probably too weak to do, which some people might not like if they prefer something more linear, but the sheer openness of this game was very attractive to me. Fenyx can run, Fenyx can jump, and Fenyx can climb up various surfaces while a stamina bar drains. Traversals throughout the world is very fluid, and eventually Fenyx gets wings and can fly from area to area, all with no loading screens, and there's even some horses and different creatures that you can mount as well. The only time that the game has actually any loading screens is when you either do a quick travel or when you jump into a vault, meaning you can visit the entire game without any loading screens should you want to from top to bottom, which I thought was very impressive. Fenyx can also zoom in on areas and find hidden chests, health upgrades, side quests, and a lot more, all of which are marked on your map so you can visit them at your leisure, which I also really liked. Combat in the game is very satisfying as well, feeling a bit like the classic God of War games from the PS2. Fenyx has a bunch of different attacks and weapons at their disposal, from your main blade attacks to heavy axe attacks that will drain stamina on tougher enemies in order to stun them, to arrow-based attacks for creatures in the sky. A quick dodge or a parry at the right time will allow Fenyx to do some major damage as the enemy itself will slow down, and mixing up attacks on the fly is all rather seamless and very easy to do. Of course, Fenyx will level up as you do certain tasks throughout the game, and there's tons of stuff you can level up. You can unlock new weapons, you can unlock new attacks, new armor, make your blades stronger. There's tons of upgrades to both the character, the traversal system, and the weapons that allow you to play the game how you sort of want to play it. Like I said, besides the main missions, there are tons of side quests to do as well, including various vaults. Now each vault is kind of like a mini challenge, with the end reward being a bolt of Zeus lightning, which can then be used to level up Fenyx. Some of them are based on puzzles, some of them are based on combat, some of them are based on tricky platforming. It really keeps you on your toes, and since you'll want to level up Fenyx as much as possible, you'll definitely want to visit these vaults. Of course, since we are playing a game based on Greek mythology, there's tons of different characters from that sort of setting that you'll fight, from giant Cyclops characters to the big Hydra to much, much more. One of the things I was very interested in seeing was the performance of the game on the Nintendo Switch. Like I said, this is a big open world game that's releasing on a ton of different platforms, but thankfully it seems like the Switch version was given a lot of love in the presentation department. Like I said, there's no loading screens when visiting the areas on the map, and it only loads when you're entering a vault or doing quick travel. The scope of the game itself is absolutely massive, and I think the Switch handles it well for the most part. The frame rate is pretty consistent throughout, with really no noticeable dips, and the world itself is very vibrant and colorful. There's even a day and night cycle as well, so you'll get some interesting lighting effects when traveling. The game does have some pop-up, which is to be expected, but it wasn't super distracting for me or anything like that personally. I actually played the game a lot in handheld mode, and I'm very happy to say that the game looks very solid in handheld mode, and it doesn't have that pesky Vaseline smear that we often see in some bigger Nintendo Switch games. Everything looks very crisp and solid, and I think that's where the Nintendo Switch version of the game shines, with the portability of a massive open world game. As mentioned before, the audio is super enjoyable with great voice acting throughout, and the sound effects get the job done. Immortals Fenyx Rising is an absolutely massive game as well, with tons of missions to do, tons of things to unlock, and tons of areas to explore. Plus, if you're really enjoying the adventure, there's going to be subsequent DLC released as well, and features 3 new stories, and one of them is actually based on Chinese mythology, which I think is pretty cool. The game even offers cross-platform saves, so if you ended up getting it on the Xbox Series X and the Nintendo Switch, you could play the game on the Xbox Series X, do a save, and then transfer that save to the Nintendo Switch version of the game and continue your adventure without missing a beat, which I think is a very, very cool feature. So did I have any issues with the game? Honestly, there's nothing really glaring that sticks out to me that I haven't already mentioned. Like I said, the pop-up is there, the frame rate is mostly consistent with, a hiccup here or there, and yes, the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 versions of the game look a bit better than the Nintendo Switch version, but that really shouldn't be a huge surprise. I feel like some people might not like just how open the game is because, like I said, you can easily wander into an area where you probably shouldn't be and you might die, and the more comedy-based style of storytelling and atmosphere might turn some people off, but to me, the story was an absolute bright spot of the game. And finally, some of the puzzles can be, very cryptic and challenging, at least for me personally they were, so once again, some people might not like that, but it was cool with me once I figured out the puzzles, of course. Was there some swearing at the TV while trying to figure them out? Maybe, but isn't that part of the fun of figuring out a puzzle? I will say, Immortals Fenyx Rising honestly surprised me. I did not expect this game to be as good as it ended up being, but it's seriously a super enjoyable open world game that might end up getting overlooked this holiday season because it's a new IP that's releasing on so many different platforms. While I haven't played the game on the other platforms, I will say that if you're a Nintendo Switch owner looking for a new open world game to play this holiday season, I definitely recommend Immortals Fenyx Rising. The writing is great, the gameplay is fun, there's tons of content that will keep you occupied for a very long time, and the game just has a certain charm to it that more serious games in this style just doesn't offer. If you're a fan of games like Breath of the Wild, you'll definitely have a good time with this game as well. And honestly, I hope this game does well enough in sales that we see more styles of games like this from Ubisoft in the future. Alright, so those are my thoughts on Immortals Fenyx Rising for the Nintendo Switch. I know there's going to be people in the comment section saying, oh, well, you're just saying this game is good because Ubisoft sponsored the video, but no, it's seriously a very good game. It's a game that I was interested in, and when I actually played it, it was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. It really surprised me, and pretty much everyone that I'm talking to that's also playing this game, even if they're not doing sponsored stuff, definitely feels the same way. It'll be very interesting to see how this game performs and how other people sort of accept accept it, but I think it's a great open world style game for the Nintendo Switch, and since there's not many games like this on the Switch, I think the Switch version of the game could potentially be the best-selling version of Immortals Fenyx Rising. For more information on the game, be sure to check out the link in the description box down below. But let me know in the comments section down below what you think of this game. Have you been following it? Did you sort of forget about it or whatever? Or what do you think about the footage that I've been showing and what I said about the game? And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. I do want to give another big thank you to Ubisoft for sponsoring this video. Like I said, I was going to cover this game anyway, so might as well secure the bag. And as always, guys, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.